Hey, welcome back to Down Under Deep Dive, the podcast where history isn't dusty textbooks. It's more like overhearing two friends arguing passionately over flat whites about who really built Australia.
Exactly. And honestly, I just re-listened to our intro and cringed.
Yeah.
We said who built Australia like it was a Lego set. Spoiler, no one built it. It was lived in, sung across, fire managed, and governed for 65 years before anyone showed up with a flag and a clipboard.
Yeah, and that number? 650? Not an estimate. It's from Majid Debi, this rock shelter in Arnhem Land where archaeologists found ground ochre, seed grinding stones, even charcoal from cooking fires.
Right.
All dated solidly to 650 years ago.
Right. Which means when the pyramids were still just a twinkle in some pharaoh's eye, Aboriginal people were already engineering fish traps at Bujbim, stone channels, weirs, holding ponds, older than Giza, like? Older. And they weren't just surviving, they were orchestrating entire ecosystems.
Fire stick farming, not random burning, precision burning. To flush out kangaroos, encourage new grass for grazing, reduce wildfire fuel.
Oh yeah.
Basically, landscape architecture with a flamethrower.
I mean, imagine trying to explain that to a British surveyor in 1788. Oh, you're calling it terra nullius. Cool. But actually, this land has laws, songlines, trade routes with Nakasan sailors from Indonesia.
Exactly.
And also, your boots are currently squishing on 40-year-old Xiao Menens. Just FYI.
Oh man, I love that image. A very polite, deeply unimpressed elder handing Captain Cook a cuppa while gesturing at a 50-year-old fish trap like, yeah, that one's been busy since Tuesday.
Exactly. And here's the thing. First Peoples isn't just a respectful term. It's geological. There were over 250 distinct language groups, each with its own kinship systems, seasonal calendars, water laws. Not tribes, nations. So when we say Aboriginal history, it's like saying European history wildly, beautifully, dangerously vague.
Totally. And yet, fast forward to 1788, and suddenly, legally speaking, the continent was declared terra nullius, land belonging to no one, which, let's be real, is less a legal doctrine and more a really aggressive form of wishful thinking.
Yes, and it wasn't neutral. It was the engine of dispossession. Because if the land belongs to no one, then who gets to decide what happens to it? Spoiler, not the people whose ancestors had mapped every waterhole in Song.
And the violence that followed the frontier wars wasn't some distant, foggy conflict. It stretched from 1788 into the 1930s. In Queensland alone, there were over 60 documented massacres, and Pemel Wu, that Eora warrior who led guerrilla resistance around Sydney for years, he wasn't a troublemaker.
Right.
He was defending sovereign territory with tactics so effective, the colony nearly collapsed.
Which makes this Stolen Generations, that government policy of forcibly removing kids, not an unfortunate chapter, but a continuation of that same logic. Break the connection to country, to language, to law. And you break the nation.
And the intergenerational trauma isn't metaphorical. It's in the stats: lower life expectancy, higher incarceration rates, gaps in education, all rooted in that rupture. But, and this is crucial, it's also where resilience becomes visible.
Yes, because while governments were issuing removal orders, elders were whispering language into children's ears under blankets. Songlines were memorized in secret. Art kept flowing, on bark, on rock, later on canvas. Not as craft, but as sovereign testimony.
And then, boom, 1967. Over 90% of Australians vote yes to count Aboriginal people in the census and let the federal government make laws for them. Which sounds progressive until you remember Indigenous people still couldn't vote in state elections in some places until the 1960s.
Oh, right.
And women got federal voting rights in 1902, unless they were Aboriginal.
Right. Federation in 1901 birthed the Commonwealth and immediately passed the Immigration Restriction Act, the White Australia policy. So Australia became a nation by excluding almost everyone who wasn't British and white. Irony level, extreme.
And yet, Anzac legend, mateship, digger mythology, all that became core to national identity. Meanwhile, indigenous soldiers who fought at Gallipoli came home to no veterans' benefits, no land grants, and often couldn't even walk into the RSL.
Which makes the Mabo decision in 1992 feel less like a legal victory and more like gravity finally kicking in. The High Court didn't give native title, it recognized it had never been extinguished. Like, oh right, turns out the land was occupied, who knew?
And Kevin Rudd's 2008 papology? Powerful, yes, but also incomplete. Because an apology doesn't restore sovereignty, doesn't return land, doesn't fix the fact that in 2023, the Voice referendum asked, should there be a constitutionally enshrined body to advise Parliament on Indigenous matters? And the answer was no.
But, and this is the hopeful bit, the conversation didn't end. The Uluru Statement from the Heart didn't vanish. It's still there. Voice, treaty, truth-telling. 3 words that aren't demands, they're invitations to finally co-author the next chapter.
Which brings us back to why this podcast isn't called Australia, a timeline. It's Deep Time Down Under. Because deep time isn't just long ago. It's alive. It's in the way a Wiradjuri elder teaches kids to read country. By watching how ants move before rain.
Yeah.
It's in the way a Yongu teenager remixes a centuries-old songline into a TikTok beat.
Exactly. History isn't behind us, it's underfoot. And the most radical thing we can do? Stop asking, what happened? And start asking, whose story did we not hear? And how do we listen now?
Love that. Okay, quick brain squeeze before we wrap. If you could pick one object to represent Australian history, not a flag or a coat of arms, what would it be?
Kualamo. That curved wooden dish used for carrying water, babies, food, ochre, even as a cradle. Carved by hand, passed down, adapted across millennia. It holds everything, literally and symbolically.
I'm stealing that. Mine's a fire stick. Not for burning, for regrowth. Because Australian history isn't about erasure. It's about what rises again and again from the ash.
Beautiful. All right, next week, we dive into how we know all this. Archaeology, oral history, satellite mapping of ancient fish traps.
Yeah.
And why primary source doesn't always mean written on paper.
And we'll talk about that time I tried fire stick farming in my backyard and set off 3 smoke alarms. True story.
Oh no, did you at least get good kangaroo? Wait, no, wrong continent. Sorry.
Honestly, just very confused pigeons and one very disappointed neighbor.